welcome to Follow the Brand TV. I am your host, Grant McGaugh, CEO of 5-Star BDM, a 5-star personal brand and business development company. B for brand, D for development, and M for masters. Today, I'm going to take you on a journey through another deep dive into the world of personal branding and business development using compelling personal stories, business conversations, and tips to improve your brand. By watching the Follow the Brand TV series, you will learn how to differentiate yourself from the competition and build trust with prospective clients. As the saying goes, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So make it one that will set you apart, build confidence, and reflect who you are. Building your 5-star personal brand is a great way to improve your skills and knowledge. If you have any questions for me or any of my guests, please email me at grant.mcgaugh@5starbdm.com. Now, let's jump into our next episode on Follow the Brand TV. This is Grant McGaugh, your host on Follow the Brand, and today we have another special guest. He's coming to us all the way from Las Vegas, but he did spend some quality time in South Florida, and he hails from the good state of New York. And I'm not going to talk about, he might be a Knicks fan, he might be a Nets fan, I don't know, but we're going to find out the story of Luther Brewster. He is a dean. He is been stellar in the healthcare industry. He understands it from the ground up when it comes to human factors. And we're going to find out a lot more about that as we talk about his personal brand and how he has used it to craft his story. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up Mr. Luther Brewster.
Thank you very much, Grant. Please call me Lou. Call me Lou. Everybody calls me Lou. I want to make sure I pay deference to my dad. He's the real Luther that walks this planet, and so I if I can walk one step behind him, I'm still excelling. So I'm cool with that. But thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the gracious introduction. Yes, it has definitely been a journey from the Bronx, New York. Part of that journey has been difficult, watching my New York Knicks lose.
Again.
but I stay steadfast with them. Till the wheels come off, I'm gonna ride with them. Yep. And but yes, I have a very a deep love and affection for Miami. Miami was very good to me. And if I can plug one thing about Miami, it would be that if there are young professionals out there, I was able to do things in Miami that I had to wait my turn on in other cities. And my dad, and if there's any one theme, you're going to hear me reference my mom and dad a lot. And the reason being is that if you were to ask me what is the one thing the older Lou would tell the younger Lou, it would be listen to your parents. Even at this age, even at 50, 51 years old, I would say listen to your parents. And it's not just, my parents kind of represent a metaphor of something much bigger, which is, we think that the world, because it's changing so rapidly, that the fundamental truths that your parents or people who are older than you could tell you no longer apply. And sadly, if you want to differentiate yourself as a professional, one strategy I believe is true is to listen to your mom and dad, or listen to the person that has walked the earth longer than you, and not marginalize them because you think that they are outdated or the things they're telling you are outdated. Somehow, some way, the Bible is continues to provide people lessons years later. Somehow, some way, libraries are filled with books that weren't dated in 2020 and still provide valuable information. And so if there are books that can do that, then there's obviously people who can do the same. And so one of the things that my dad told me that really sticks with me is if you do it right, you'll spend half your life talking and half your life listening. Mm-hmm. And if you find yourself out of balance, then shut up for a year and see what you learn. And see what you learn, right? And so I'm a big proponent for for that. And my dad told me, don't keep living in major market cities. They're built on tradition. They're not set up for the young person to break through. Find a new market and build in that market. And so lo and behold, I had lived prior to that, I lived in New York and London and a number of very established cities, Michigan, and could not be heard as far as my idea. It was sort of like, that's a great idea. Either give it to somebody older than you or sit in the corner and wait your turn. Got to Miami and basically did the work that I had always wanted to do, received all this acclaim for doing the work, but the idea was there 5-10 years previous, but I just couldn't get a chance. So I tell young professionals, especially those young and hungry people who are out there ready to do it, go to a smaller, younger market and prove to yourself that you really are what you think you are.
Oh, I love the intro you just gave and some of the wisdom from experience that you just talked about. And that's going to be very, very impactful, especially our listening audience. And I want you to, because you kind of got to the middle of your journey. Now it goes all the way to the Bronx. And from listening to what you just said, you had a very good upbringing. You had two good mentors that guided you. How did that impact you? How did you get into this realm? Matter of fact, you're a dean, right, of a esteemed college. I know you're down here. So you're at FIU, right?
Right. I was at FIU in Miami, but now I am the senior executive dean for community health innovation at Roseman College of Medicine here out in Las Vegas, Nevada, in the Summerlin area. Those of you who spend any time in the Las Vegas area are familiar with Summerlin. And we are founding a medical school here, just like we did in South Florida. The goal here is to create the medical school of the future. Mm-hmm. And so this medical school and the work that myself and my colleagues are doing represents something that I think has been sorely missing in healthcare, and that is people care. And so, but I want to go back to your original question about sort of my time growing up and sort of how I arrived at where I arrived at. Yes, I'm from the Bronx, New York. I'm very, very proud of that. But I didn't, if I'm being all the way candid and honest, I didn't always wear that as a badge of honor professionally. I, for many years, used to feel very insecure, very uptight about my accent. And it wasn't until I went to a presentation by a very well-known researcher who just happened to hail from Kentucky, who had a very thick Southern drawl. And I remember asking him, do you ever, were you ever concerned about your accent or whatever? And he said, no. He said, because I don't want a young person from Kentucky to think that just because of the way they talk, they can't reach the highest levels of anything they want to go into. He's like, so I just figured, this is who I am and this is who I'll be. But it does not detract from my ability to be about excellence. And so I ever since then have kind of just leaned into it, and that I am who I am. But the big lesson I took from growing up in the Bronx and what spearheaded everything that I have done subsequently was I came from a family that was not probably too dissimilar to most people in the Bronx, very hardworking, very well-intentioned, but also surrounded by many of the trappings and roadblocks in life that set back so many families throughout the country and all over the world. And several of my family members have found some difficulty in life, but some have also been very successful. But the thing that really struck me about my family was that for those who did achieve success and those who didn't, the spirit of their heart, the amount of love they showed me, the intent that they had in investing in me was the same, despite what they achieved in life. And so what I could never understand is how is a person who could bestow such wisdom on me, such love, such compassion, end up in such a bad circumstance. And so I always tell people I've never had a profession or a field. I've had a mission. And the reason I say that is that healthcare just is a vehicle to achieve my life mission. It is not who I have allegiance to. My allegiance is to all those people who are like my family, who for no reason but circumstance are good-natured individuals, loving, compassionate individuals who, for the absence of a possible opportunity, one different chance, one additional person to believe in them could be in the seat that I'm sitting in right now. But even greater than that, the fact that I am sitting in this seat, what they achieved in life or did not achieve in life does not eliminate them from my legacy and from their legacy. And so the people that I work with and work on behalf of my whole career have always been those who have been underserved, low income, working poor, working middle class, those individuals who, like I said, with just a little more of an opportunity, one break here or there, can see their child or their grandchild achieve heights that we'll never know. You can only spend but so much time trying to cream the top. At some point, you gotta, dig deeper in society, and that's for the benefit of us all.
Let me stop you there because you're on a good track right there, because the difference, something happened in your world that defined your personal brand and how you were able to elevate and make that leap, that change. Was it a change in environment? Was it a school? I mean, what is about your personal brand has helped you in your career to be successful?
So I'm a strong believer that excellence exists in the future. And so that's where I need to reside. If I told you, Grant, hey, I want to play golf like Tiger Woods, okay? You wouldn't expect tomorrow for me to wake up and play like Tiger Woods. In your mind, you would immediately say, if he's going to do that, I'll see him in about 5-10 years or more. And he may be on the path of being like Tiger Woods, because his excellence, the level of excellence he would need, will need to exist in the future. Mm-hmm. And so I always tell people, you see me today, but I don't exist here. I exist in the future. And as long as I plan to do anything on this planet, I will exist in the future, because that's where excellence resides. And so every day and it also allows me to walk through the world each day in amazement, because this day was planned 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So all I'm doing each day is looking at excellence that I sought to achieve 5, 10 years ago. Excellence in myself, excellence in those I love, excellence in maybe even just the way I think about the world. And so when I always tell people, there were two main things that I came to that really transformed my life. One was recognizing that I need to live in the future. And the second one was, I needed to let go of the belief that human beings validate themselves. There's a humility that you need to carry in this life, that I don't care whether you believe in God or not. There's a humility you need to carry in knowing that what goes on in your life can't be 100% controlled by you. I don't care. Let's say I'm a man of faith. I love God and God loves me. But I'm saying, even if you don't, even if you're just the most logical individual, you can't tell me you believe everything good that happens in your life and everything bad that happens in your life is 100% under your control. And so if it's not, then pay deference and honor to that which is outside yourself. Be humble in it and gracious in it, whether it is your failures or your successes. And if you can do that, if you can achieve that, then how much easier, how less stressful life becomes. And so that, combined with, living in the future, has just made me, really appreciate and walk through the world in amazement and just see the wonder of all that exists around us.
I think that's a wonderful philosophy, and it's a way of completely elevating yourself and beyond your current circumstances, that you can see a future, a better world ahead of you, and then plot a course that's going to take you there.
Yeah, you live backwards, right? You live backwards, right? So there is no price, no fee. I don't care what existence you're, when you can live in the most downtrodden of areas, and you cannot have a bed, you could have no clothes, you could even have no food, but you can still see the future. And so that is the one thing that you have autonomy over, is your ability to exist in the future. And so, yeah, today I have no bed. Today I have no food. But in the future, I live plentiful. And now I'm going to work backwards on how do I get there. And so all those things that take place, and when you can work from that direction, then you know what to say no to. Not just what to say yes to, but what to say no to. You know the price you will pay for using drugs or any other roadblock, because you exist in the future, and in the future you don't see yourself strung out on a corner. Right. In the future, you see yourself, standing upright, helping, all who walk the planet. And that person doesn't do that bent over, and bowing down to somebody. They looking up at everybody or looking them in the eye. And so, like I said, I exist in the future. You see me today, you see me, but I'm not here. And just right there, and I want my audience to really tune in to that, rewind that statement, play it over and over again, because that's the difference maker. That's the difference between somebody who's playing basketball and somebody who's in the Hall of Fame. That's the difference into somebody just doing a job and somebody who's running the business. Those are the differences.
So, and I wanted to ask you, because this is something that when I met you, first time I met you, we were talking about that a little earlier, was down at an accelerator. And we were there to talk about how we could solve some problems with technology with a cohort of people. You came in and you framed the discussion around health and healthcare, and you talked about your program, and you were solving a problem that was bigger than yourself, and you were very passionate about it, and reusing your skill set, and you were reaching even beyond yourself. You say how we can solve that problem. If you could frame that discussion again for our audience, I think it was so impactful. I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. So this is at the crux of the work I'm doing here in Las Vegas, right? So, I framed it under the 3Ds, right? And so the distance, dinosaurs, and those damn do-gooders, right? And so distance is very, anything you can do to reduce the distance between a provider and a consumer is going to lead to good things. It's going to lead to that humility that I talked about earlier. A doctor can easily have you come to his office and ask you questions about your living conditions and look down at his chart and type it in and I'll give you a classic example. So we train medical students here at Roseman. We'll be training medical students by requiring them to do home visits, and they'll be assigned to practice groups that have groups of low-income, medically underserved families in that practice group exclusively. And they will be required to provide home visits to those households and achieve overall better outcomes with all the families in their practice group. And we'll have 6 of these practice groups. And so one of the things that they will uniquely understand is when you ask an individual, do you have a bug infestation in your home? And you ask that person that question when they're in your office, you'll just type it down and not really probably think another thing about it. You might even say something as detached as, yeah, you should do something about that. But when I tell you, you got to do a home visit to that place with the bug infestation, and you are now sitting amongst the roaches, you don't have to ask the question, first off. And second, you have a heightened motivation to see to it that bug infestation is mitigated and urgently. Because guess what? Next month, you'll be right back in that household. And so now that reduction in the distance between you and the person you care for has given you an elevated shared experience, a shared burden that sadly many of our providers and those that we trust to care for us, and this could actually be extrapolated to law enforcement as well, that you just don't see in modern day that we need to return to. Then there is dinosaurs. Dinosaurs is not that the individuals providing the care are outdated, but the thinking is outdated, right? So yes, I believe we should maintain some core rules, but also we should strive to think better each generation, reflect on the lessons learned and live them out. Every generation, I don't care, even if they do provide core foundational knowledge, they all have some regrets. They all have things that they wish they could do differently. It's our job as the generation that follows to pick up and not go the way of the dinosaur. See what's going on and do something about it.
Change it.
Yeah, and change it, right? Don't just hear it. Don't just see the footsteps and the fossils and think, oh, that'll never happen to me. Recognize where you exist and do something about what you see. And then the third one is those damn do-gooders. Sadly, so sadly, many of the young people I train or work with or mentor are stuck in this cycle of creating success instead of solutions. And so, They rather come back and tell you how they have, raised the most money, or got the most people to sign up for something. But then you ask them, well, how many people's realities have been improved? And they're like, I don't know. I didn't track that. That wasn't my role. Well, then what are we doing? Which one are you rooted in? Because success is really about you, solutions is about others. And so my whole thing, and people have heard me say this over and over again, is if you want success, work with somebody else. But if you're about solutions, then hey, my door is always open. But I'm at a stage in my life and in my career where it's not about me. It's just not. And so, and I can't say that is a new revelation in my life, but it's really more pronounced, and I'm more aggressive in my demand that the people around me be in that same mindset. And so those are the 3 Ds. We've got to, you want to improve the relationship. You want to create a competitive advantage. Get closer to your customer. We've heard that for years. Well, remind yourself and think creatively about how you can do that. You want to improve your bottom line. Don't go the way of the dinosaur. Sit humbly, listen to another individual, find out how they became, where their fossils lie, and correct and create something new that is in response to the lesson that was learned. And then the last one is, we got to stop training these young kids to go do weekend service projects. All we teaching them is indirectly is you can solve social problems that have occurred for generations in 3 days. That's all you got to give is 3 days or 21 days for your high school service commitment. You want to improve society? Make service with one agency longitudinally through all of high school. So you can really see how hard it is to make change in society. It's the reason why you have individuals who grow older and they say, these people are lazy. Yeah, well, that's because you've never been anywhere around them. You don't know their experience other than the 3 days you were required to do a community service or serving on a soup line. That's not really understanding the plight of the individuals you're working with. Now, their intention might be good. They might say, yeah, I really want to help people. But hey, that's a do-gooder. A do-gooder is a person who feels but doesn't do, who feels but doesn't sacrifice. That's that damn do-gooder. You want to do well for individuals, then sacrifice with your intent. And that sacrifice is going to be longitudinal and over time.
Help me out with that discussion, because where you're talking is so important. It's very important. And I remember you talked about something that really resonated with me. And you talked about healthcare, or just health in general, as a violent system. That how it deprives someone, if you deprive someone of the ability to create income, the ability to care for themselves, the ability to have food and shelter, and that the system of itself is structurally made this way, and the ones that are affected by it, are the ones we're looking to assist, but don't understand how that's flowing downhill. Can you just add some context around that?
Yeah, so violence at its core is about harm, right? It's about harm levied by a person or a system. And so, and it's void of intent. If I am beating on you, Grant, and I'm yelling, I love you all along, it don't make it any less violent than if I'm yelling that I hate you, right? So we have to get out of this mindset that violence is only violence when it is rooted in an intent to do violence, right? That might play in the courts, but it doesn't play on the psyche of the average individual who lives life. And you can see the trauma of violence on the faces of the individuals coming home from that 60, 80-hour work week, who is then told when they get home that they should save more, or that they lazy, and that's why they got to work that 80-hour job. But what kind of sense does that make? What does that communicate to a person? I sit down, I'm looking at the television, I can't get my ends to meet. I worked 60 hours this week. I went to take my kid to Little League. I fell asleep at the Little League field because I'm so tired, right? My kid want to have McDonald's on the way home, but I can't even afford it. And then I got to turn on the TV, or I got to be on the phone with somebody who's telling me, well, this is all you deserve. This is all you deserve. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, there's somebody working 30, 40 hours with a whole complete, reality. Now, one person will say, well, that person deserves it. They earned it, because they went to college or whatever, et cetera, right? Well, we got to be real cautious about how we use that word deserve, right? Because if you're a spiritual person, you may say, no, they don't deserve it. If you are a person rooted in a philosophy of equity, then they may not deserve it. And so we have to, think about what we're communicating to people in their most dire circumstance, their most vulnerable circumstance. And that is the one where I walk through a doctor's office, the doctor's door or a hospital door, knowing that they can say something. This is the part we forget. Mm-hmm. Do you just think about this? Rarely in your life will you have a time where you can, purposefully walking into a building, that a person can say something to you that can end your life. That could be your last real sense of hope. Think about the power that commands over your mindset, that I can walk in this building and there is any number of a person in this building who can provide me some information with such certainty that it will get me to believe that my life is coming to an end. Okay? Now, that same individual, okay, with that amount of power, in that structure that can communicate that amount of distress on you, okay, is telling you, if you want to know the answer to that, though, you got to pay me. Wow. And oh, by the way, I get to set the price. There is no haggling. There is no advanced knowledge of how much it will cost. I will tell you what it is, and you will pay me. And that mindset is why you talk. You see the manifestation of people not trusting the system, because the system is abusing its power in a violent way upon me, minus the intent, but abusing their power on me, and then in the one place that I have autonomy, where I set the rules, you don't even want me to have that. And that's my home, right? I go home, you demonize me because I don't eat the right food. You demonize me because I choose to sit and watch a television show that makes me laugh instead of walking around the corner, walking around the block, or running on the treadmill. Okay? So we have to get out of the blame game, the judging game, and get a more comprehensive understanding of the experience we're placing individuals in, and provide care from that mindset. Because even the look on your face, speaks to, have you ever thought about what that place, the hospital, represents uniquely, right? But I only shared it from the vantage point of how you feel when you go through the door. What about your wife? What do you feel when she goes through the door? What about your mother, your father, your sister, your son, your daughter, when they go through the door? you carry all of that. As the Black experience or the people of color, we have disproportionately seen negative things come as a result of going through that door. So of course we see that infrastructure as one that we can't trust. But even if we could trust it, we see it as an infrastructure that is cowering, that we are cowering under, because it holds this truth about us potentially that can be the last thing we really know about real life. And so, you know, when you have those two forces acting at the same time, you got no one in those structures that look like you, sound like you. It's a recipe for disaster. And I'm not even getting into intent. You know, that's a discussion that we could have, you know, ad nauseum. But I just think I want to elevate the discussion around what that true experience is, and then we can get at really addressing how we can do things better.
You know, and I really appreciate you taking the time to illustrate that story. You are the voice of the people of these that have suffered in these circumstances. We hear about it at times. They put big words around it, the social determinants of health.
Of health, yeah.
Right. And what does that look like? Well, you know, unless you grow up poor, it's very hard to understand. And understanding the environment that sometimes.
But you don't have to grow up poor.
In.
You don't have to grow up poor, Grant, to know the world of the social determinants of health. What distinguishes, we all experience the social determinants of health, okay? What is different is some of us have elements of our life that make us more resilient to them than others, okay? And so I hate to use this very exaggerated example, but I'll use it to provide some context. So my wife and I and my son, we lived on the beach in Miami. It got expensive and we had to move off. So because of our background, we are able to move to another neighborhood with equally competitive schools and equally nice supermarkets and et cetera. Okay, transpose that onto somebody who comes from a low income or underserved area. First off, they do not get choice in knowing that this is too expensive for them. They are told it is no longer something they can afford, and so they are displaced. They are moved out of where they are. They oftentimes move to an area where the schools and the resources are worse than where they came from. The most valuable thing that they have by way of their resiliency is their ties to their friends and family, and that sadly is usually disconnected as well when you move them to another area. And so it is that creates that negative result from the social determinants of health, is that we are not acknowledging that some groups and some people have different ways that they need to accommodate and form resilience against the social pressures that exist. That's one. Two, we start those individuals in a hole because they did not conform with the standard of how this system is supposed to work all the time. There is no room, there is no latitude for difference in our economic system and in our social order. And so if you step outside of it, unless you do it in a way that you can monetize it, you are screwed. You know, I always use the example that, you know, when I talk about these sort of arbitrary economic and social orders, I use the example of school. Who wrote the book and the rule that said everybody got to finish school in 12 years? Like, where'd that come from? Like, why do we have to do it in 12 years? Think about it. I think about my schooling, right? And what happened after my schooling. I have a couple of years in there I just blew. I know we all do, right? I got a couple of years after college or before college, or during college probably, where I just blew. Like they were meaningless years of fun, right? And so why couldn't I apply those years to those 12? And so instead of getting out of school in 12 years, I got out in 13, 14, 15. I slowed down for quality over quantity. I decided that I wanted to have a more quality education than beating the clock of 12 years, right? We demonize young people for getting repeated in classes. But why? Where did that come from? Who wrote the book that said every human being that walks in the United States must finish school in 12 years, right? It's an economic order. That's what it is. It's an economic order. It's you know, the system won't work right if everybody is not done in 12 years. The workforce transition won't work right if I ain't got a new workforce in 12 years. Right? But what about the human order? What about the person order? Are they prepared in 12 years? Are they adjusted enough in 12 years? And so we have to begin to, and I hope young people, and maybe this occurs after I leave the planet, but I hope we begin to challenge some of these conventions to restore order that is not rooted in economic and social, but is rooted in the needs of human beings and who we are as people. And I'm so encouraged by some of the language I'm hearing around mental health and whatever. Maybe that will get us to have some of these conversations, but that shouldn't be a shock that we talk and challenge this convention of 12 years of school. Why?
No, you've said it. And I think those are some of those dinosaurs that have come out.
Yeah.
And I think that started back in the beginning of the industrial age and how they created. But here we are, we're in 2021. This is the information age. And we have a different way of looking at life perception versus reality. What does that look like? And there is a huge challenge. And this is something for the United States. I can only speak to the United States because that's been my primary experience. And as we look at even current leadership, you know, I'm looking at the age group. You know, the people that are running the country now, even in the last 4 or 5 years, have always been people of the baby boomer age. You know, they're 70 and 80 years old. So what experience are they carrying forward? Are they really speaking to that millennial? Are they speaking to, you know, that Gen X or even Gen Z? And what does that look like? Those individuals are adapting to a whole different lifestyle to which they grew up. And what does that look like?
Yeah, but if we were invested, Grant, if we were truly invested in doing what is humanly ordered, we would say, okay, people are living longer and wanting to work longer, right? And so to your point about the industrial age, we had people get out in 12 because people weren't living as long and we needed to replace the workforce. But what is the issue that they're seeing in Europe and we're starting to see here is there's no jobs because those damn old people won't retire, right?
Yeah.
Well, instead of demonizing it, instead of making it a negative, think of the positive. We could, because they're still in the workforce, they're still paying taxes, let's make school longer. Let's reduce the school day and give them more years to complete it, right? Or I got another one for you. We just experienced COVID. I hear all this talk about how the mental toll it took on young people and the rates of mental health requests and needs for young people are through the roof. They've been locked in a place for a year, and what are we going to do? Here's my proposal. Let's, for the next year, teach students nothing. Just spend the whole year letting them socialize. That's it. Have them socialize for 1 full year. We can, put some stuff in there so they don't get behind, but the year should be built on just socializing. Every day you come, we're going to have fun for 1 full year. we're gonna have 13th grade from now on, for this year. And so, what in the world would that do? Think about that. Why is that so bold or unconventional? That we put kids in summer school for not getting to work. Why can't we put them in summer school to have fun? At the bare minimum, right? Hey, we didn't achieve our social goals with our young people. They got to make that up. So we're going to have a summer of fun. Mm-hmm. Right? So I don't want to hear anybody in the education system talk about we're about the human and emotional development as much as the educational, if right. You're not entertaining a conversation about giving them makeup time to address their emotional and human deficits as a result of this pandemic. And so that's the kind of thinking that, to me, we need to begin to challenge individuals on and have a dialogue about, and then do something about. And what's so wrong with it? But that same thinking will, imagine what it'll lead to in the innovation that those young people will carry out into the world. Because if I'm in a system that says to me on the first day of school, hey, this year we having fun the whole year, and here's why.
Yep.
When I graduate, I'm like, you know what? They have a good point. Why that's how we should all think. This is the challenge we have, I think, moving forward. And this is what I think living in the future has done for me. It has allowed me and afforded me the opportunity to see what I would like to see in the future. I want to see healthy, happy, developed young people in my future.
And socially, what I'm hearing is that health, that is a detriment in our health because of the and you see it played out in the workforce even. There's
those young people, are consuming at a high rate, but how many healthcare providers are being consulted in our educational work plans and our educational policies about this? Because if they consulted me, that's what I'm coming to the table to say. Now, they may all laugh me out of there, but I at least will have gotten an opportunity to put it on the table. But who's engaged in those conversations is another thing we have to look at. And healthcare,
it's about being bold and understanding, because we just said the industrial age started back in the 1910s. This is 2021. Mm-hmm. We're starting to move away from gas combustion cars. We've got to start looking at electric. We've got to change the way we've been living our lives. The paradigm must shift, and it will shift. It will, because it has to. Life force will break out in other ways. This is how you get innovation to occur, because if you stay in the same mode, you want to go out and buy a taxi cab today. Why? Because there's Uber, right? So if you stay in that same mode.
But it's also about, what I talked about earlier about how we define deserve, right? So we apply that word deserve very differently for the poor and underserved than we do for the rich and well-to-do. The rich and well-to-do deserve as a result of their investment monetarily, but the poor and underserved are not as deserving for the human investment that they've made to the same system. And so your dollar is worth more than my blood, sweat, and tears and my sacrifice to my family. And so as long as that is the universal paradigm, then we will bend over backwards to see to it that the wealthy always get what they deserve, as defined by the wealthy and well-to-do. And so I'm not changing a system that will undermine the wealthy and well-to-do in getting what they deserve. But I will change a system that will greatly impact what is deserved by the low income and underserved in this country. And so We talk equity in health as a function of the cost on the system, the manifestation of disease across different groups. But we really need to talk about, and this is where the social determinants of health is a powerful tool. We need to talk about equity as it relates to structural violence, structural policies and systems, and how one income group is deserving while another is not. And that as long as that is allowed to persist and be reinforced, we're going to see unhealthy societies.
And that's well stated. And it has to change. Something, if you follow history, it does change. It's just how it's going to change. And if you can step out into your philosophy, look into the future and make the changes now consciously, instead of being the effect of that change.
Yeah, well, not even just look out into the future. You have to exist there. You have to live there. It'll free you. You know, you won't argue with another individual about what's going on right now if you exist in the future. You won't let the weight of the world that you're seeing right now get you down if you exist in the future, because you understand that everything that's going on right now is a function of the progress towards your future, good and bad. You know, I always share that, you know, the person who tells you that your idea won't work is just as powerful as the person who tells you it will. Right? Because the person who tells you it doesn't work is putting something in your mind that is needed, just like the one who tells you that it does. And so you know, we and this is that humility I was talking about, right? You aren't 100% responsible for anything in your life. And if you let go and understand that, then it allows you to walk through the world in amazement at all the things that have been put on your path to get you to your excellence that exists in the future. And so that's all, just relax in it. Walk around, see a tree and be like, for whatever reason, I was supposed to see this tree at this time. You know, and I'm telling you this as an individual. When I was in my 20s, I got sick. I ended up in a coma for 2 weeks. And people always ask me, you know, like, what did that do for you? And I always say the same thing. I said, you know, when I came out of that, I made a pact with God. I said, you let me live, and I will always see to it that no matter what it is I do it in the service of somebody else. And you have me on record, every business I've had since then, every venture I've taken on since then has always been rooted in doing good for others who have less. And that, when I stop doing that, that's when my contract with God is over. And then that may mean that that's my last day. But as I walk this planet, that's what I'm about. And so, and that's, you know, that's my decision. That's my mission. It hurts me to see young people who walk the planet with no mission, no vision. Right. So that would probably be my last thing to say, is that they find, I don't care how many hours it takes, how many days, months, weeks, and years, find your mission, your vision, and then, you know, move towards it urgently and unyielding. And you'll be so happy at how it'll transform your life, your being, and your riches.
You just said it. And that's what personal branding is all about. You step back, you have to define your personal mission, not the company's mission or the organization or association. That's their mission, and that's all good and fine. But what is your mission? Mm-hmm. What is your vision? What is your goal? And what are the things that you're engaged with? Is that in alignment? What are you learning from that? Really wake up and be conscious about what's happening around you with some intentionality. That's what I just got from what you just said. And I love what you just stated. These are perfect words. It has been a pleasure to have you on the show. And I can't wait for it to air. And before we sign off, is there any anything else you'd like to leave the audience? Anything else you'd like to state before we go ahead and conclude?
I would just say, I think I'm very excited about being in Las Vegas. I'm hoping that people will begin to see Las Vegas as something more than just the place you come to gamble. Although I want you to have a good time, I believe that's important in life. We are launching a revolutionary new look on medical schools. Buoying that work is an initiative that I'll be leading called Genesis. And Genesis will be the component of us going into homes and helping individuals. And so I want people to kind of stay tuned to that and support it. And support it doesn't mean, money. Support it means tell people about it. Get people, because, greater than $1 for me is somebody who will support something positive. And that's all I'm asking, is that if you do a little homework on what we're doing out here and you think it's positive, then share it with somebody else and keep positive things in the universe. And so that would be probably my last thing. Grant, I just want to thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I'm so pleased to see you still doing great work in South Florida.
Thank you.
Anytime you need me to come and do anything, you just give me a shout and I'm there for you.
I certainly will. I really appreciate everything you just stated, and the work that you're doing is phenomenal. You have changed lives. I know you changed lives here in South Florida through your programs. Because if you did not have that vision, you did not put that passion in, there are people that changed. They didn't end up in that paradigm of, going into crime or going into some kind of a very negative situation. They made a decision and got the change that they needed. And that's just a small subset of people. But I definitely would want to propagate your message and what you're doing and people like you in your field, because this is the change that we need. And I really appreciate everything that you do, Lou.
There is a platform, this platform that I have is all because of mentors. I was brought here to Las Vegas by my mentor, Dr. Joe Greer, Pedro Jose Greer, salt of the earth individual. He is the dean of this college. He is the reason that we saw the change in South Florida. He was my boss there. He is my partner in a tech company called Humble, which is a platform that powers all the work we do. So all of those things, and I would be remiss if I didn't say that you can do great things, but please, please, please don't forget that there are others that come along in life to help you and to usher you and to mentor you, and you need to be receptive to it and respectful of it. And that's what Dr. Greer is for.
Absolutely, with 100%. So thank you very much again for being on Follow the Brand. You can reach us and you'll see this podcast aired at www.5starbdm. That's B for brand, D for development, M for masters.com. And before we leave, just if they need to get in touch with you, Lou, is there a email or something? How would they get in touch with you?
Right. So social media, I'm at iDevelop, IDVELOP. And email-wise, you can email me at lbrewster, my last name, at roseman.edu. And then also, we launched a podcast of our own out here. It's called No Laughing Matter with Cuba Pete. And so you can just search that, and we're on all of the podcast networks and YouTube. And so all of those things, you can keep up to date with what we're doing out here. Some very exciting things to come.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that. And we will be talking again soon. And maybe at that point, before that point, the Knicks will actually, did they win a playoff game? I think they did win that playoff game. I just had to end on that note.
Oh, that's tough. That's tough right there.
Well, no problem, my brother. Right. You take care of yourself.
You too. Right. Take care now.
Bye-bye.
Follow the Brand TV broadcast host, Grant McGaugh, as he visits with top executives and entrepreneurs to find out their secrets of success with their personal brand. Follow the Brand TV broadcast host as he focuses on brand development to build better relationships, bring value to your business, relationships, and career. You will enjoy listening to each episode that is tailored to speak to you directly. If you're looking for this type of clarity in terms of building your brand, you have tuned into the right station. Each episode will help you to shape a conversation in the 5-Star BDM network of 20,000 professionals and become a springboard for your corporate engagement and business opportunities. Each guest will frame their story in the areas of personal branding, business development, career development, financial empowerment, and technology innovation. Grant McGaugh explains why he is the CEO and owner of his own professional career. Grant is an accomplished business leader and entrepreneur who wants to give back to individuals to grow their personal brand strategy. Tune in as he weaves his story about new possibilities, while to you exceed expectations. If you love storytelling, this show will make for fun.
5-Star BDM, Brand Development Masters, is a professional consulting and advisory group keenly focused on business development services for the small to mid-sized business and entrepreneurs. Although every business is unique, they often share business development challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. Services include process improvement and operations, digital strategy and transformation, business intelligence, digital marketing, and personal branding. Our business and personal branding company has helped a number of professionals and organizations to optimize and grow. This results in more business, more opportunities, better reach, positive outcomes. Visit www.5starbdm.com today to learn more.